Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. It is such a delight for me to be able to scan the room and see all of you here and trying to figure out who's who under your masks. I, and I live with some sorrow that I can only imagine who's over there in the Zoomiverse. But I know you're here with us, and I'm really delighted that we can actually provide this kind of accessibility for people. I'm Reverend Lydia Ferrante Roseberry, and I'm the minister here at this beautiful congregation. And I'm joined today by Service Associate Linda Thornton. Julie Morris and Wendy Nelson are providing music. And our tech team today is Eric Williams, Mary Stagpole, Karen Griglak on Zoom, and Deborah Mensch. And of course, you are all here with us, and you are what make us the beloved community. As I say our welcome words today, those of you on Zoom can shift into gallery mode and see who's joining you from the comfort of their own homes. And, excuse me, and those in person, I just invite you to look around and see who's amongst you this morning. You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and all the places you are from, you are welcome here. With all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon until you return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart today or with tears, you are welcome here. You're invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today. We acknowledge that the land surrounding us is the stolen territory of the Arapaho people, and that many tribes roamed freely on this land for millennia before the arrival of white settlers. And we commit ourselves to being a center for spiritual exploration and justice-making, and to anti-racism and anti-oppression work within and beyond our congregation. We have our pledge drive update with our handy-dandy visuals. So this week, we have 100 pledges. That's 100 lollipops, but it's only 50% of the pledge units, and so that's not quite the right scale. But it is 50%, so that's really awesome. And you all have pledged almost $310,000. So that is absolutely amazing. And that's 65% of our goal, to getting to our goal of $472,000. So that is amazing and nerve-wracking, because the pledge drive ends at the end of the month, and we still need the rest of you to pledge, so we can continue to provide our beautiful services, our adult education and children's education, and our connections to justice in this community. So more than ever, I hope you realize and can see how important it is to have this community that is rising again now, to nourish, deepen, and connect. So if you haven't pledged and you're here in the room, you can go right outside the door to the left after the service, please. And if you're on Zoom, there should be a link going into the chat now with an opportunity to pledge. And stewards will still be trying to contact you, and that's just a lovely way to connect to the congregation. So please accept a steward visit when you get called. If you're new here, we're very glad you found us and hope that in this virtual community, you can experience the warmth and the love of this congregation. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. And we have many opportunities during the week for social engagement, connection, spiritual growth, and justice making. If you're on Zoom this morning, you can check out the links going into the chat, which will give you more information about all the things we can do here in the fellowship. And if you are also on Zoom, any visitors, if you'd like to just type your name in the chat, tell us your name and where you live so people can greet you, those of us on Zoom. And if there are anybody here, if this is one of your first visits and you'd like to do so, we can pass a mic around so that the Zoomies can hear you as well, if you just would like to introduce yourself and tell us your name and where you live. And this is purely voluntary. So if anybody would like to introduce themselves, that gives us opportunity to know people. It should be on for you.
Hello.
There you go.
My name
Great.
is Whitney Honstein, and I'm Susan Honstein's daughter, and I live in Louisville.
Welcome, Whitney. Glad you're here. Anyone else this morning? Here it comes.
Good morning, my name is John, and this is my second time, I guess. I live out in Louisville.
Welcome, John. Oh, there's someone over there, Linda.
Hi, I'm Mary Hill. I live in Louisville, and I just joined. Thanks.
Welcome. Well, it is good to be together. So good to be together. Everyone on Zoom is invited to stay for virtual coffee hour. And those of you in the room here in the building this morning are invited to stay. We don't have coffee just yet, but coming to a Sunday near you, there will be coffee here once again. Yes, please. As I light our chalice, I invite you to say the words along with me. And those of you at home can just, in the chat if you'd like, and you're lighting a chalice, write chalice lit in and the name of your town. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And I invite you to let the sound of the second bowl draw you deeper into the present moment and into the company of this gathered community.
Welcome. Welcome to Existential Painting. I am your host, Linda, and we have an exciting project for you today. We'll be painting nothing. We're using a blank canvas, a pencil, brushes, and the colors Cloud White, Snowdrift, Wisp, and Vanilla. Okay, let's jump right in. First, we'll be painting a base coat of Wisp. So get your biggest brush and Well, I'm not sure if you can make it out on the camera, but actually there's already a bluish hue to this. I think maybe the company that manufactured this canvas put a primer on here already. So it's not really blank after all. It's already got color, so I guess we'll skip that part. Now we'll be sketching out nothing. Don't worry, it's easy. You've probably drawn nothing on most days of your life. Starting with an outline will ensure that your painting has texture, dimension. But, well, actually there's already a lot of texture here. It appears to be made out of some woven cloth, and I don't know if it's coming through, but there's lines and shadows, and so I think we're good on that.
2, 1.
So now load up your brush with your favorite shade of white and let your creation come to life. I mean, it's not like it's being born. It's not like it wasn't there and now it will be. I think we've pretty much established that every time we think that we're looking at the start, looking at a blank canvas, we realize we're wrong. There's color here, and even if you find out what primer was used on it, you'll still have to know what the color of the cloth was before it was primed, what the color of the cotton was before it was woven into the cloth, what the color of the sunshine was that made the cotton grow.
What?
You know what? I don't think we can paint nothing. There was always something inside of what we perceive as nothing. In fact, I think there's so much here. I think we're done.
Good morning. This is, to me, about wonder. To see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildfire, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. To see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand
Before I start a meditation with this morning, I wanted to thank Jeff Van Cleve for this morning's service topic. It's a three's a charm because this is the third time we've tried to do this topic here. The first time we tried it was the Sunday after the insurrection, so it got bumped from that Sunday. And the second time was 10 days after the Marshall Fire, so it also got bumped. So I want to thank Jeff for your patience with us this morning and for asking me a very good question that I've had now over a year to ponder. And Jeff's question, if you haven't figured it out or didn't read it already, is why is there something instead of nothing? So here we are, here we go. I invite us into a time of meditation. So if you would just begin by turning your attention inward and start to pay attention to your breath as best you can if you're wearing a mask in here. And just see if you can tap into how amazing it is that you can actually breathe. Just that, the simpleness of breath. And look around a little bit, either in this room here in the sanctuary or in your own room, wherever you might be. Everything you can see around you is a part of an existence that never really had to be here. Ultimately, it's all gift. Pay attention to what you can hear in this moment. The hum of the HVAC system. My voice over the microphone. Whatever you may be hearing in your environments at home. And how amazing it is that you can hear anything at all. Now, if you would, take a look at your hands. Take in the splendor of these appendages at the end of your arms. And explore the parts of your hand. How many? How many fingers, knuckles, veins, rings, wrinkles? Imagine all the ways that you can parse out the miracle that is just this part of your body, just your hand. Where does your hand stop and the rest of creation begin? Does it end at your skin? If you could look at your hand in a microscope, would where your hand stop look a little different? How has where you end, where your hand end, and the rest of creation begins, how has that been defined for you? These hands that came to be here, they're attached to the rest of you. And just wonder why it is that it is as it looks, and not a claw or a tentacle or nothing at all. Connect with that deep sense of awe and wonder of how it all got to be here. Our minds want to quickly dispel this mystery underlying all of creation. Our minds like explanations. It will quickly fill in an empty hole of why is your hand there? Let's say, because my mom and dad met and they fell in love. And you can fill in the rest of that story. Or the Big Bang and evolution. Or God created it. But the invitation here is to start from scratch. Just experience. Not the explanations of evolution or God, but only what's in front of you. This hand and the sensations in your body as they experience this hand. The experience of this present moment that contains all the moments that came before and maybe all those that will come after as well.
Good morning again. My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. The sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain, where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love,
I want to take a moment again to thank Jeff for asking me a question that makes my head hurt. And I'm grateful for fate that has given me so much time to ponder it. So there's many ways we can dive into the question of why is there something rather than nothing. This question touches on a few of the primary questions that religions try to explain. Who am I? Where did I or where do we come from? Who's in control? And how do I know what I know? There are many creation stories from religious traditions that are called ex nihilo stories, that creation came out of nothing. If you were raised in a Jewish or a Christian tradition, you may be familiar with the biblical creation story. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Ex nihilo stories are common in other cultures as well. The Mayan creation story also begins with the word. In that story, there was no one at first, no birds, no animals, and the sky separated from all things, and the sea that was dark and all alone. But there was a maker and a feather serpent, and their words and thoughts were so clear that they brought the world into existence. The Kono people of Guinea share a creation myth that the darkness before creation was inhabited by three beings. By death was a being called Sa, and his wife and his daughter, and they were the only beings in the vast darkness. Sa got bored with nothingness and wanted to build something, so he used his magic power and made a mud sea, and he kind of formed a muddy house out of it. The god Alatangana came to visit and found it dark and uninviting, and pretty muddy, I guess. The earth feels sad, the god Alatangana said. So he added more lights and plants and animals, kind of a sprucing up housewarming for the god Sa. Now, of course, these creation stories don't really start with nothing, right? There is something. There's a divine being, and often the vastness, a vast emptiness, but a vastness of something. And anthropologists look back, and often you hear about the sea or the sky, and you can imagine ancient people, that was a vastness, an unknown mystery vastness. So they would start there to build upon their creation, but with a sense of it was nothingness. Now, philosophers through time, including Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, explored the same question. You like this guy? Oh, good. Well, he came up with some particular answers. He lived in the early 1700s, and he was credited also with developing calculus and the binary system that's at the heart of our modern computers right now. Leibniz thought that nothing would have been simpler and easier than something. If nothing whatsoever had existed, then no explanation would have been needed. Not that there would have been anyone there to ask for an explanation, of course. And he also thought that the fact that there was something and not nothing required an explanation. The explanation he gave wasn't too different from some of the creation myths, and it had a similar challenge. Leibniz concluded that God wanted to create a universe, the best one possible, which makes God the simple reason that there is something rather than nothing. Now, in the increasingly secular and scientific world, God created the universe didn't provide a very satisfactory answer. So one kind of answer is to say that there had to be something. It would have been impossible for there to be nothing. That was the worldview of 17th century philosopher Spinoza. I'm getting nods. Who claimed that the entire universe, along with all of its contents, laws, and events, had to exist and exist in the way that it does. Einstein also appears to have held a very similar view. Other scientists, such as the current theoretical physicist and atheist Lawrence Krauss, do I get a nod from Lawrence Krauss too, Jeff? Thank you. They offered a more nuanced version of this answer. Krauss claimed that our universe arose naturally and inevitably from the orientation of gravity, the operation of gravity on the quantum vacuum. Now this is way past what I can't say anything besides that to explain this. An empty space teeming with virtual particles that spontaneously pop into existence before disappearing again. Wow, did I hear wow over there? Wow, yeah. Now, it sounds what? Oh, so far you're with that one. We can take votes in here. Oh my God, who's Miss Spinoza? Okay, so Krauss's theory implies that there could not have been nothing because there always has been something. Aha. First it was gravity and the quantum vacuum, and out of that was born the universe as we know it. Other theories also seem to presuppose that there always must have been something in existence from which our universe arose, such as strings or membranes. The trouble with such scientific answers to the question of why is there something and not nothing is that it is not clear why we should think that there had to be gravity or the quantum vacuum, whatever that is, or strings, or even a universe at all. So every time you get into what came before, there's a before. So it seems entirely possible that instead of all these things, there simply really could have been absolutely nothing, which is kind of wild. Another response to the question is to simply deny that it has an answer. So that's what Bertrand Russell did in 1948. When he was asked why he thought the universe existed, he responded, "I should say that the universe is just there, and that's all." Now, this account that the universe would be what philosophers call brute fact, something that just doesn't have an explanation and we just accept. Russell's point was not that humans haven't yet explained why there is something rather than nothing, but that there just isn't a possible explanation. Okay, now we're getting into multiverses, and I'm not going to say too much about multiverses because it's way beyond. Those who believe that our universe is part of a larger multiverse, that there could be an infinite number of actual universes, also take this line that it's not that we haven't figured it out yet, it's just that it's unexplainable. So that there's no ultimate explanation. Now, this answer may not be very satisfying, but that doesn't mean it's not true, that it's not explainable. But ultimately, as I've been reflecting upon this for the past year, I'm wondering whether why is there something rather than nothing may be the wrong question. Sorry, Jeff. Or an inaccurate question because it is based on a dualistic view of the world. We are wired to experience the world dualistically. That's how we have evolved. That there is a world out there, and then there's me, and I have a contained shell of a body. And I may be connected to the world, but inside of my skin is somehow separate from outside of me. There's me and there's you. There's the observer and the observed. This view is so natural, so universal, that we even have a hard time wrapping our heads around the fact that that might not be the case. So as soon as you try to measure something in the universe, your measuring becomes a part of that phenomena of trying to measure something. So we can't be separate from it. Even claiming a before and an after puts us into a dualistic mode. Non-duality is the experience of what is without constricting it into two or sometimes even more, without assuming that the felt separateness, even the concepts of space and time, are real. That there's one creative movement that is everything. But as soon as you say that, then this is the issue with words, right? As soon as you say one, then there's another somewhere. So this is where my head starts to hurt. But the Eastern religion traditions kind of help out with that. And this is where I'm seeing what I love about being alive now is science and mysticism in these cool dialogues with each other. So in the Eastern religious tradition, the Zen tradition speaks about the finger pointing at the moon not being the moon. Have you heard that expression before? It's the finger pointing at the moon that we tend to focus our attention on. We can never actually touch or experience the moon. And the Tao Te Ching says the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. How limiting our language is to try and explain ultimate reality. Mahdi Hamaka Buddhism tells us that nothing has an intrinsic, permanent self-nature. Instead, all phenomena, including people, animals, all beings, are temporary confluences of conditions that take identity in individual things from their relationship to other things. In the Christian tradition, process theology is also very relational. It is an understanding of God moving in the world in relationship all the time. And so when the relationship shifts, the thing itself shifts. So let's consider a wooden table. It's an assembly of parts. If we take it apart bit by bit, at what point does it cease to be a table? If you think about it, this is an entirely subjective perception. One person might assume that there's no table once it is no longer usable as a table. Another might look at the stack of wooden parts and project the table identity onto them and experience it as a disassembled table. The point is that the assembly of parts has no intrinsic table nature. It's a table because that's what we think it is, a table, in whatever state it's in. The table is in our heads. And another species might see the assembly of parts as food or shelter or something to pee on. We could look at the universe in the same way. If it is made up of gravity, strings, and a quantum vacuum, when did it stop being that, which is something, and start being what we name a universe? Different people might have different answers to that. Going back to our hands, a non-dualistic way to look at the hand and not see anything or any non-things. So to imagine not separating my hand from the space around it as not my hand. Because as we break down the particles, if you were really to look at this with a microscope, you would see a variety of where my hand ends and where my hand does not end. In a similar fashion, maybe that there's not the creation of the universe with nothing and then something after. Examining the origins of the universe is fundamental to religious exploration. But for Unitarian Universalists, we don't need, there's another more pertinent question. Because we're a non-creedal tradition, so we don't need all of us to settle on the same answer to these kinds of questions, or even to answer them in order to be Unitarian Universalists. As a Unitarian Universalist, you can believe in a God that set things in motion and then disappeared. Or you can believe in a God that continues to control creation in a more hands-on way. Or a universe that is independent of an outside creator. And no matter what your beliefs are, though, in our covenantal tradition, the fundamental question is, how shall we live together? So at the same time, what we believe about these unanswerable questions, where you line up with those questions, impacts how you move in the world. And our seventh principle, which is the respect for the interdependent web of all creation, leads us in the direction of a non-dualistic worldview. Leaning into that, we learn to live in relationship with creation and less as object and subject. And I believe that deep interconnection leads to deep reverence and is the path for us to explore love's eternity. Does your head hurt now too?
Good morning. I'm Wendy Highsmith. I am so glad to be standing here in this sanctuary on this dais with so many of you in person and those of you on Zoom. It is a long-sought dream for this congregation and for me personally to be right here. Were you called to be a Unitarian Universalist? I was. My journey began in college in the 60s when a friend asked me if I wanted to go to the UU Fellowship with her. I said yes, never knowing where this would lead me or what I would find. I liked it a lot. I owe so much to Cindy Jones, wherever she is. My childhood religious education took place in the Presbyterian church across the street from where my family lived. If the doors were open, we were there. There were a few bumps in the road along the way about the beliefs I couldn't reconcile nor discuss with my parents. At about age 9, I had heard you couldn't go to heaven unless you're a Catholic. So I asked this question of a Brownie Troop friend of mine. She said yes, that it was true. Well, I asked myself, why was I going to church and Sunday school every week if I was going to hell anyway? When I got to college, I realized for the first time I did not have to go to church. I tried the Presbyterian church in Tallahassee, but it was the same old stuff. Believe and save your soul, or you know the rest. Go to hell. 10 years later in Atlanta, after a brief dip with the Episcopalians, I attended the service at the large UU congregation in Atlanta. It was lay-led, with closing the service in a circle. I had never experienced such intimacy or an experience of the holy, as Jan Eller Isaacs would say. I was home. I got involved, taking more than giving then. I met and married Jim Highsmith there. Now that's a bonus. From Georgia, we were involved in congregations in Utah, Arizona, Florida, then this fellowship 9 years ago. How did I get my start here? I joined the choir. A joyous step that opened the door to the many ways available for building community within and outside these walls. For justice making. Supporting this place and our shared ministry with my time and treasure is a calling. which only makes sense when there is so much we want to accomplish together to lessen the injustices we see all around us every day, all the time. Are you called? Are you in? Thank you.
Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Half of our plate today will go to Ukrainians of Colorado, which is working with Project Cure to bring medical equipment and supplies to the people of Ukraine. Maria Dobrovna, the president of Ukrainians of Colorado, says, "Many of us were born in Ukraine, and we have contacts throughout the country with whom we are in touch on a daily basis, so we know what their most pressing needs are, and we have the means of getting critical supplies into their hands as quickly as is possible. You can donate directly at ukrainians.colorado.wpcomstaging.com. This was nominated by Jean Canella. Please give generously as the virtual plate passes, as you so often do. As our musical reflection begins, we invite you to write into the chat your answer to this question. When you look at your hand, what do you see? for the work of this fellowship, bringing love, reason, compassion, and justice to this world. And Ukrainians of Colorado, we dedicate our offerings.
There are so many beautiful things in the chat for people what they saw in their hands. I will make sure they go out in an email to you. It's just gorgeous. So now is our time of community connection. Certainly there's a lot going on in the world and in our lives. And if you are on Zoom and you'd like to share something, please type it in the chat window and sending it to everyone, and let us know briefly what is in your heart today. I'll read aloud what you share, and Linda will add a stone into our sacred waters on your behalf. If you're in the sanctuary today, you can come up front, share your joy or concern using the microphone, and add a stone to our waters. Or you can add a stone in silence as well. And wherever you are, just please tell us your name and where you live so that we might be able to better follow up with you. Thank you. Today I offer you this prayer for Ukraine written by my colleague, the Reverend Eric Cherry. He's the director of the UUA's International Office. It's called a peacemaking prayer. The history is complex. The politics are intense. The fear and anger are overwhelming, and the future is unclear. But glimpses of a hopeful vision will not be bombed into oblivion by anyone. In prayer, we call to mind the peacemakers, neighbors of differing faiths, with different histories, with different politics, with different emotions, who find room for each other in their hearts, in their dreams, in their lives. Those who hold firm to a vision of peace and justice anywhere in the world, but especially today in Ukraine. Spirit of life and love, be present with all who are suffering terribly from the violence in Ukraine. Lift up the hearts of those who fear, and inspire courage among the peacemakers. Be present with political leaders, ensuring a retreat from violence and a procession toward the peace table. Guide the hands of all those who are caring for the injured, the hungry, and the grieving, and open our own hearts to compassion. Remind us of our own complicity and responsibility, and lead us toward generous engagement, and move us always, always toward a vision of peace. Blessed be. Amen. Thank you so much to Julie and to Linda for making that slideshow for us. I have a couple of announcements. Today, immediately following the service here in the sanctuary, Together Colorado is holding their legislative priorities meeting, so you can stay here. And it is, I'm looking towards our AV people, it is multi-platform, is that correct? Yes, excellent. So stay on Zoom as well if you're Zoomies. This is how we bring our values into the world, is through this work. So. And also on Friday evening at First Unitarian and Saturday here, Tad and Emily Coriath will be doing their Lit by Love concert. So hopefully there's still tickets available. And you can find this information. You can go to the front, to the welcome table, or those of you on the chat, if you go up and look at finding out more things about the fellowship on those links on the website. Those are my announcements, and now let me go and extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Beloveds here, beloveds far, wherever you are, let us remember how connected we all are, and let us go forth in service and in love. Blessed be. Amen.